Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Siti Ayuwandana Putri, and my ID number is 18212208, and I'm from class C. Therefore, today I'm part of group 4 for this language assessment course. And today, in the previous presentation, my friend has explained about developing a task. And now we're gonna talk about key terms and concept in task development. Okay, before we started to explain the materials, we have to know that the key terms and concept in task development consists of 3 points. And the first is about construct the definitions, and the second is about criterion and norm references assessment, and the third one is about target language use or TLU domain. So we're gonna explain that one by one, so let's get started. Okay, we're gonna start the presentations. Before we starting examining the steps in a task development process that will improve the usefulness and meaningfulness of our task, there are a few key terms and concepts in task development, and those are consist of 3 points like I said before. Okay, let's go to the here are the outlines. I wanna explain about the 3 points about the construct definitions, criterion and norm references assessment, and target language use or TLU domain. Okay, so let's go to the construct definitions. Construct definitions is the process of defining what it is we intend to measure. A construct is the most often theoretically or empirically involved, in this case for research of the context in which language is used. It may be identified in a curricular document which spells out goals for learning, or defined by learning outcomes that have been identified for a course. So construct definitions, once the method for a task has been established, or we have this idea that we want to use a task of our assessment tool, and the purpose of the test is clearly understood and stated. For the example is to place students at the appropriate level on ESL program or English second language programs, and then to admit students to study in a university, and then to award a certificate of mastery in a trade or skill, and then or to determine the degree of achievement attained by individual students in a class. And we need to define precisely what we intend to measure. And for the examples, we are teaching for students of junior high school who wants to pass a national exams, or we call it UN, and practice of exam. And the things we need to teach to them is about the language skills, about writing, and then reading, listening and speaking, like that. And also for the cognitive skills in order to make them get the satisfied result. Okay. And the second, we're gonna talk about criterion and norm reference assessments. Okay, the first we're gonna talk about criterion references assessment. Criterion is a defined learning outcome of a course we are teaching. So criterion references test results are often based on the number of correct answers provided by students, and scores might be expressed as a percentage of the total possible number of the correct answers. And the main purpose for criterion references assessments is to describe what students know and can do, something like that. And the next, we're gonna talk about the norm references assessments. Okay, At times, the purpose of a test or assessment procedures is to compare students' performance with other students, to rank students' performance on the basis of test performance of their peers from high to low. Such a test or assessment procedure is called as norm references assessment. Okay, norm references assessments. It is what is that? Refers to standardized tests that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relations to one another. Norm reference test reports whether test takers perform better or worse than a hypothetically average students, which is determined by comparing scores against the performance result of a statistically selected group of test takers, typically of the same age or grade level, who have already taken the exam. And the main purpose of norm references assessments is to discriminate between students. Yes, and we can see the calculating norm references scores is called the norming process, and the comparison group is known as the norming group. Norming group. Okay. Norming group is typically comprised only a small subset of previous test takers. Not all or even most previous test takers. Test developers use a variety of statistical methods to select a norming groups, interpret raw scores, and determine performance levels. Okay. And norm reference scores are generally reported as a percentage or percentile ranking. For the example, a student who scores in the 70th percentiles performs as well or better than 70%, or other test takers of the same age or grade level, and 30% of students perform better, as determined by norming scores. Um, Norm references tests often use a multiple choice format. Though some include open-ended short answer questions, and they are usually based on some form of national standards, not locally determined standards of curricula. Okay. And you can see here uh, the examples, the representative examples of how norm reference tests and scores may be used. The first is to determine a young child's readiness for preschool or kindergarten. These tests may be designed to measure oral language ability, visual motor skills, and cognitive and social development. And the second example is to evaluate basic reading, writing, and math skills. The test result may be used for a wide variety of purposes, such as measuring academic progress, making course assignments, determining readiness for grade promotions, or identifying the need for additional academic supports. Okay. And the third point is about target language use, or we can call it as TLU domain. Target language use, or TLU domain, as a specific setting outside the test itself that requires the test taker to perform language use tasks. In many settings, we are interested in developing our students' proficiency, performance, or skills without specific reference to a context of use. And we know that language changes in relations to the context in which we use it. the words we might guess from the context while reading the sports page in a newspaper, an item in the restaurant menu, or a form at a bank or the hospital will differ in relations to their context. So when we interpret a criterion, we may want to add some context to an item or task in our test. Okay. Language assessment should, insofar as possible, require those assessed and to engage in language use activities that are as close as possible to those that the assessor will need do in real life setting under considerations. For example, is if the assessment is going to be used in hiring a person for a job, and then the actual types of language used involved in that job should be analyzed and used on the basis of assessments. If the assessments to place students in different levels of language classes against the relevant tasks or abilities that make the difference between the levels must be identified at the outset. Okay. Okay. So we can catch the main idea. So in the conclusion, we can conclude that the key terms and concept in test development consists of 3 points. The first is construct definitions, and the third one is about the criterion and norm reference assessments, and the third one is about target language use or TLU domain. And for construct definitions is a must because it measures what we're gonna teach to students. And for criterions, the main purpose of the criterions is to describe what students know and can do. And for the norm references assessments, the main purpose is to discriminate between students. It means to rank students from their learning process result. Okay, and for this challenge, I think the presentation is finished. And sorry for all my mistakes. And thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.